Hey, welcome back, guys. Daniel Tardy here, along with our Vice President of EntreLeadership, Sarah Sloyan, and welcome to the second in a three-part video series about what real leadership looks like. Sarah, last time we talked about influence and the difference between positional power and influential power as a leader and how to start building influence with rapport and trust and credibility. And if you haven't seen that video, be sure to go back real quick and watch it because this thing kind of builds on itself. So check that out first. But for those of you that saw that, let's dive in today and talk a little bit about how we maximize our influence. And we know that influence is the position we need to lead from, not from power and from manipulation. But how do you really build influence, not only as a leader, but someone who maybe wants to be a leader someday? So you and I have talked about three key things that you can do that instantly start giving you more credibility and more influence. And the first one, and I hear you say this all the time, it's murder it in your job.
I love that.
Kill it in your KRA.
Murder it.
Like, things are dying around here. But I mean, what we mean is like just crush it with your day job, right?
That's usually my first question. When someone comes in and says, hey, I feel like I've been doing this. I want to grow in my capacity. I say, awesome. I love that. Tell me how you're leading the charge in your own area. So are you the very best salesperson? Tell me about that. And I love to just talk through that. And sometimes they are, usually if they are, I don't have to ask.
Yeah, you kind of know.
Usually you know.
So if you ask that question, they're like, what's going through your head at that point?
Right. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit. If you're not, why aren't you? And if you're not crushing it at what you're currently tasked with, how should I be confident that if I give you this other responsibility that you're going to be able to crush it in that responsibility? We got to start with what's in front of us first.
You got to be faithful in the small things to expect to have more responsibility. Right. So that's the first step. And I would say I've made the mistake before of, because I like the person or because I seem to kind of have this opportunity over here and I needed help, I skipped that step and just assumed that, well, if I just get them over here into this other opportunity, it'll all kind of work itself out. But I've regretted that, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's not necessarily that their current KRA, the responsibilities even connect to the next thing we're talking about. But if they can show that they have developed that discipline in what they're doing currently, then I have the confidence that they'll be able to also then take that discipline and figure it out in this next. And we're not just going to kind of jump jobs, but never actually excel at anything.
Yeah, and Sarah used the acronym KRA. If you're not familiar with EntreLeadership language, that stands for the key results areas. And so we're going, what are the results that are key that we expect this person in their area to be responsible for? And so first step is crush it in your KRA. All your key results areas got to be pinging 10 out of 10 before we start having conversations about more responsibility and more opportunities. So that's the first thing. Do an outstanding job in your role. The second thing is, as you're killing it in your KRA, do you have the capacity to start serving other people, start making a positive impact on your peers and the overall business that you're working with? Is it something that you're able to be a lifter and a promoter of the whole in addition to just your individual areas? So let's talk about that.
My favorite serving leaders are the ones who they go out, or growing leaders are the ones who go out and they see like, oh man, there's this gap here and I can help. They're not doing it from a place of, oh, look at me, look at what I'm doing over here. Aren't I so good? I'm helping this person who's incompetent. They're doing it and like, oh man, there's a gap and I know how to solve that problem. Maybe I can jump in and help that person. They don't care about the credit. They just see an opportunity to help. And that to me it really stands out.
Yeah, totally. And one of my favorite things to do, I don't know if I should admit this or not, because our team's going to figure this out. This is like one of my secret ways of checking in on this, but I love kind of sneaking into the back of a team meeting where no one knows that I'm there and just listening for the dynamics in the room. Because I know as leaders, everybody's on when the boss is in the room and you're putting your best foot forward. But I'm constantly kind of eavesdropping where I can and going, who's really talking positively about the whole team when the boss isn't looking? Who's really in the moment going, hey, I'm going to give you the credit for the idea. And
absolutely.
I'm promoting these other people in front of my peers. That lets me know they're not trying to do it to impress me, but they genuinely have this team player mindset. That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. The people that aren't doing it just to seek the credit or check that box, or they're doing it because they genuinely care about other people, which is something we talked about in our first video. Those people who are showing that they care about their team members. Those are the people that are going to be excellent leaders.
You know, one of my metrics also is we do a weekly report every week, and we ask our team in the weekly report to put a high point and a low point for the week. And over time, you'll start noticing certain people's names will show up in those high points. and you kind of go, look, this is unsolicited praise or kind of organically coming up through the team. You got to pay attention to those people. Whatever they're doing is working. It's making an impact with their peers. If you can influence your peers, then if you have a title, think what you can do. So that's really where it starts. So starts with crushing in your KRA, then serving others and being a problem solver. And then the third step is, and we talk about this all the time, but the power of asking good questions, being curious. Why is this so important if you want to build influence?
I think that people who can start by seeking to understand, there's a magic there. When someone, especially we were talking about this earlier, in this day and age, everyone is so busy thinking about what's the next thing I'm going to say, what's the rebuttal I've got coming up. It is really noticeable when someone stops and goes, oh, well, tell me more about that, or what's going on there? Why do you think that's like that? It's very easy for us to sit back, and this piggybacks on what we were just talking about too, kind of being solution-oriented. Somebody who can go, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Where are you kind of hitting blockers? Why do you think that's the case? And kind of take someone through that exercise versus just, it's very easy to sit back and go, well, you're doing this all wrong. Yeah. Let me just tell you about it.
It's easy to be a critic.
It's easy to be a critic, right? Exactly.
Yeah. You know, we've seen the people that lead in our organization that really stick out as phenomenal. They're just fantastic at asking questions. And this is not the kind of questions where they're interrogating, but it's the questions that let you know, I really want to understand you. And don't we all just want to be understood? I mean,
heard.
Isn't that really what creates connection? Is like, I think you hear me. I think you get me. And the only way to do that is when you stop talking and start being inquisitive. And then we talk about the power of just summarizing too. Once you've asked questions and instead of jumping right into like, oh, here's what we should do. Hey, let me make sure I understand what you just said. I heard you say that you didn't like how the last meeting went and that I didn't do a very good job of speaking up for you. And we talked on the front end about how we were in this together and I didn't advocate for you. And you feel like that I kind of threw you under the bus a little bit and that really hurt your feelings. Is that accurate? And that person's going to go, oh my gosh. It doesn't really matter what you did. What matters is that you get me and that you're owning it and you're showing me that you care about having my back. And so doing that question asking exercise and then summarizing, here's what I think I hear you saying, is powerful to create influence and maximize influence. You can do this with your peers. You can do it with your leaders.
With your spouse.
Your spouse, your kids.
That's a free tip.
You know, this is a human, how to win with humans, right? I don't know if it works with your dog, but...
there's a second benefit to that as well, which is that a lot of times, especially when we're seeking, more responsibilities or there are all these smart people in the room, we feel this obligation to know everything. And so we feel like, oh my gosh, we have to impress everybody by our knowledge. But the reality is you'll never know everything. If you can just ask good questions, that's impressive. Yeah. If you can just get to the root thing, you're really good at doing this. A lot of times when people, and this is what plays also into that repeating back what you've heard, a lot of times the instant reaction that people give you to something is not actually the root thing that's going on. So if they say, oh my gosh, that meeting was a disaster, okay, note to self, never make that meeting a disaster again. I mean, it's not really, you've got to dig and find, okay, what's the underlying thing here? Okay, they felt like I threw them under the bus. They felt like that is the helpful thing where you can improve your behavior in the future. Just knowing like, oh, okay, note to self, don't make that meeting a disaster. Yeah. You're not going to make significant changes there.
And asking those questions help them process it out loud. They may not even know exactly what's driving them crazy. And so it's a way of serving other people, helping them have a sounding board, have a place to get that out. And, I always feel like when people do that and then they respond in a way that is solution-oriented, not like, oh, well, that's a problem, sorry. It's just such a dead end. Yes. But when somebody says, can I help with that? I have an idea. I tell you what, I'll go connect with them and I'll see if we can set something up and have that discussion. They're moving the problem toward a solution and they're willing to put some personal work in that effort. That's a leader right there.
Absolutely.
That's what we all look for. So if you will ask questions, if you will seek to understand, if you'll summarize back to them, you're really going to start to maximize influence with people. So those are some really great ways of doing this. And, I think it was Peter Drucker who said, my greatest strength as a consultant is to be ignorant and ask a few questions. And how relaxing is that? You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have prestige. You can just be curious and enjoy the ride and see what you learn along the way. We're learning all the time. And as soon as you think you got it figured out is really the beginning of the end for you as a leader, because that starts to lead to pride and hubris sets in, and you always got to stay hungry, always teachable if you want to have influence. So just to recap what we've talked about, maximizing your influence starts with really delivering with excellence in your key results areas. Secondly, while you're doing that, adding tremendous value to your team and figuring out who you can serve alongside of you on the way to a unified mission. And then thirdly, get really, really good at asking great questions. So if you'll do those three things, you'll be well on your way to maximizing your influence. But here's the thing. If you have a gap between where you are in your influence and where you really need to be to start to get leadership opportunities, you got to close that gap. You can't just hope this stuff kind of organically happens. So in the next video, we're going to give you a way to assess where you are, to kind of identify what success looks like, and then some proven specific steps that you can take action on. And give yourself some homework and say, I'm going to work on the discipline of this particular area so that I can start to get more and more influence, so that I can lead more, so that I can have more fun, so the team can have more fun, and so that we can all win together. That's what this thing is about. We don't want to just be average. We want to swing for the fences and get results. And if we're all a part of that and we're all increasing our influence all the time, it's a fun journey. So don't miss the next video. We're going to break all that down for you and give you an action plan to increasing your influence. We'll see you next time.